Welcome, everyone. Welcome to the Total Truth Show, hosted by myself, Ken Kleinberg from San Diego County, California.
And I'm Aldwyn, Altuney, known as the Media Queen from the Gold Coast in Australia.
And our goal here on this show is to help you to break away from the mainstream media propaganda and lies, the disinformation and misinformation that's out there in the mainstream, and really help you to start questioning everything and start doing the research for yourself. We want to punch through all of that disinformation and misinformation. Our goal here is to raise global consciousness to quantum critical mass and then pave the way for a new awakened civilization. And we would love for you to come along for the ride. Don't take our word for it. The things that we share here on the show, that goes for our guests too. Start doing the research for yourself. Start going and asking the questions for yourself. Get out there and really find the real truth behind things. So with that, let's get started, you guys. Let's dive into today's episode. Once again, welcome.
Oh, yes. Welcome. Total Truth Show, episode 57. Can you believe it? The truth about systems with my amazing co-host from San Diego, Mr. Ken Kleinberg, and our very special guest today, John Tonkin. Now, John joins us from New South Wales, and I've known John for actually over 10 years. We met through an amazing program called Business Blueprint, Dale Beaumont. Will I ever have to do this again? If yes, build a system. There we go. Build a system. And John is the absolute guru when it comes to systems for business. And we know if you want to take your life and your business to the next level, systems are absolutely crucial. So a little bit about our amazing guest here today before we get started. Now, John has been working on systems for the past 35 years. He started in the corporate world and he brings his experience across to now small and medium-sized businesses. His first business started in 2000, is it 2000? Starting
Yep.
his first. John founded Brain in a Box in 2007, and he's worked inside hundreds of businesses since then, mostly in Australia, New Zealand, also Malaysia, Philippines, and even one in the US. And he created all of the blueprints for Business Blueprint. And there's hundreds of them, aren't there, John? How many did you do there?
365, just to beat a round figure.
Amazing. Well, welcome, John. It's so great to have you on the show.
Thank you. Lovely to be here. Looking forward
Fantastic.
to talking about systems.
Yay. And look, it's funny because I always thought of myself as, I'm no good with systems. I must say I battle a little bit with it, right? Like we have a round table day that we're at the conference and I'm always at John's table. I'm going, so how do we do this Google Sites thing again? And what do we do? And so actually after the last conference, John said, look, I think you need a little bit of extra help. You know, let's have a call. And he reached out and we had an amazing call. And I said, oh, look, John, it'd be great to interview you for Total Truth Show and help share your message with the world, because for those who think they're not good with systems like myself, right, or who've thought that in the past, what can they do to sort of overcome those mental blockages around systems?
Geez, I think the best thing to say is what Arthur Ashe said: start where you are, use what you have, do what you can. There's no special system for doing systems. The best thing is pick up what you can do and do that. But then, of course, look for some more effective way of doing it. So just start. Starting is the beginning.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think in my head, I had like, it's got to be really technical and it's got to it's, very difficult. You need a whole lot of different apps and platforms and whatever. But then I saw a video online about how to make a peanut butter sandwich. And, they said, get the bread, take the bread out of the thing, and then you get the knife and then you put the peanut butter on. And I mean, that is actually a system, right? And I never really thought of it that way. It's really just a step by step. Do this first, do this next, right?
That's
and
it.
It can be as simple as that.
It can be as simple as that. And probably about a third of most processes, systems that are in every business are going to be what we call a linear process. Start at the top, do your 10 steps, and you're finished. And here's what you should have at the end. So for most businesses, that'll be the case with a lot of their systems. But then, of course, now you come to the ones where it's a bit more complex, where you're saying, oh, yeah, and when you get to the third step, if they're doing this, then we have to add this in. or if they're not a member, then we need to collect their fee or whatever it is, something like that. But effectively, it's going to be an overview of the process that can be captured in a linear process, just steps 1 to 10 or steps 1 to 20, whatever it is.
I love that. And actually, Ken's doing an event with a lady called Mia Cedillo at the moment. And Ken, I noticed you've got quite a process there with sending emails out before the event, because I noticed you had 2 hours to go, and then you had an email that went 15 minutes to go before the event. And obviously, working with people internationally, it's important to send those kind of emails to remind people to come on. So, Ken, I'm curious, did you sort of map out how that was going to look before you put that system in place?
So I can't take all the credit for it because so my website is through Kajabi, and Kajabi actually has a system in there. So when you create a funnel through Kajabi, you create the landing page, and then they sign up, and then they get to the page where there's a timer on there. And then once that timer runs out, you set up another page that will show up, that in this case, that will bring them to, there's a button that they'll click that will basically be the link to the live Zoom call, and so they can log in. And during that process, so when you set up a funnel in Kajabi, typically they have a lineup of already pre-done template emails for you, and you just go in and you customize them. You customize the times you want them delivered. You customize the wording. You customize everything you want. So that's pretty much what I did with that. And it's interesting. One of the major changes that I made to that lineup is there's one email that goes out about an hour before the event. Well, I got to thinking about it, and I'm like, there's a lot of busy people out there, and an hour may not be enough time for them to see it on the day of. And so I actually went in there and I changed it to 2 hours before the event to make sure that, like they get that email 2 hours before and they see it and they're just like, oh yeah. And then you do get one 15 minutes before. And then you also get one 11 minutes afterwards that basically says, hey, did you miss the login? Here it is. Here's your link. And all that. And then there's emails that go out 30 minutes afterwards. So they're already involved in the call. They're not going to be checking their emails typically. They're not going to be checking their emails. And so there's another email that lands in their inbox 30 minutes into the live call that then is supporting everything we talked about on the last part of the call, which was the pitch for the group coaching program that we have going on. And so it's really cool how, so that is a system. It's a system that Kajabi has in place, and you get to customize that system. And it does make it really real simple and real easy to have those automated emails go through. The other cool thing, which I also discovered just recently, my website's been on Kajabi for about, 3 years. And I just am now discovering this. So a lot of people that have email campaigns that go out through Kajabi, you get sent an email and it shows from the from part of the email, it shows it's from the Kajabi system. It has the Kajabi name in the email. And I just figured out that I could go in there and I can change that to actually make it look like it came directly from me.
Yeah.
And so I went in there for this particular event and I did that for the very first time. And then I signed up myself for the event so that I see the emails that everybody's getting and I know what's happening. So, yeah.
That's exactly what systems does in essence. You're saying, hey, it'd be a really good idea if we send emails out in sequence before an event. But of course, someone's done it before. So someone did it really well before. So if we capture that expertise and then make it available to other people, there's our system going broadly across the team, across anyone who signs up to Kajabi in your case. Mm-hmm. But the whole benefit of it is we've captured what works and we've got it in there. But of course, we can also tweak it. So you've tweaked it to say, I don't want it to come from Kajabi. I want it to come from me, Ken. So there you've done that. And that's exactly what systems is. Capture what works, make it work better if you need to, and then make sure everyone has access to it.
Mm. And how did you get into systems, John? Were you always good at systems, or was it something you developed?
I think I've got that mind, that brain, if you like. I used to work in Banque Nationale de Paris in Sydney, the French bank. And my boss said to me, John, you have one of those brains that works well on the task side and also on the people side. You know, most people are more one or the other. And he says, you seem to have that knack of being able to pull the two things together. So I'll take him at his word, but I've always enjoyed it. And it really is capturing what people say, because I'm not an expert in most of the things, or very few of the things that I work with clients on. But I am, if you like, an expert, or I believe I've got some expertise now in capturing what they're thinking and then presenting it back to them and their team in a way that makes it easy to follow. And that's that expertise there. But it came from me working in that bank, in the French bank there, and we had a whole pile of new things happening. So this was right back in 1985 when we were introducing Windows, and we were going from a mainframe to Windows. And of course, everyone across the Australian group had to have a Windows laptop and so on, or computer. And so we were introducing that and rolling it out, going all over the country, training people and getting them to understand how to use it. And so that was the beginning of it, because obviously we had to train people. And then when it came to, say, Windows, we were using Windows software. So there was Excel, and we got an advanced copy of Excel before Windows was implemented. And I had a big blue DOS screen. I don't know whether you remember them, anyone. But in the middle of that was a little Windows window, and in the middle of that was Excel. And of course, we had no manuals, we had nothing. And so I was working from what we did in Multiplan, and then training people the next day in Excel, etc. It was really cool, very exciting time. But, you know, that was the beginnings of my systems career, if you like. And from then we've gone on in that business and many others along the way.
I find it interesting that you said Windows. Now, I made the transition from Microsoft to Apple quite a few years ago. And you know the saying, once you go Apple, you never go back. Well, I found that to be very true. Apple computers actually run a lot smoother, and they take a lot more weight and pressure as well.
Yeah. And I hear I always hear that comment. It's a bit like I have Apple, an Apple Watch, and I have my Apple phone, and they're about the only things Apple that I have. Everything else ends up being Microsoft, simply because, or Windows, simply because I've also got tools that I use in there, and they seem to work better there. For many years, we had a piece of software within the business, which was a Windows-only piece of software. So I had to stay there. But I appreciate that there are plenty of people out there who do systems every bit as well, using Apple or Linux or all the others. So there you go, showing that we're pure.
I mean, it was just kind of like a little light, light, because it's the Microsoft and Apple war. It's fun.
Yes. And in fact, those watching us right now on Facebook, LinkedIn, YouTube, Twitch, Twitter or X, and Instagram, let us know, are you a Mac user or are you a PC user? And actually, I put that question out on my Facebook a while ago when I was looking to get a new computer, because I was with Apple and then I went to Microsoft, and then I've actually now gone back to Apple. I've got a MacBook Air. However, my phone, I use Samsung. I use a Samsung phone. I don't like the Apple phones, although I do love the laptops, I must say. Especially the MacBook Air is great when you're traveling a lot. I really like it. But the reason I went to actually a PC from the Apple is because it was actually lighter. I found this lighter computer that was actually only 1 kilogram as opposed to 1.4 kilograms for the MacBook Air. That was actually lighter to travel with, but I had all sorts of problems with it. I had to send it in for repair, the Windows one. And I mean, I still use it as a backup computer, so I actually use both. However, I must say I find Mac really easy to use, although there's disadvantages because you're stuck with the Mac stuff. There's not as much flexibility, not as many apps you can use with Apple, I find. So I think they both have their pros and cons. But let us know, watching this right now. I can see Billy Genus on Instagram, etc. Let us know, what do you prefer, Mac or PC? And it's interesting. We most of us use a combination. Interestingly,
and I think it actually that influences how we think as well, because if we get locked into one thing, we'll have that locked in. As Dale said the other day in a presentation we saw, he was saying that the most expensive thing you can own is a closed mind. And I love that. And I think it's so true, because so many people, no, I'm sorry, I only use Windows, or I only use Apple, or I only do this, or I only whatever it is. And you end up only doing that, and you miss out on everything that's outside that, and also the flexibility to be able to move between whatever it is. So I love that we have the two. And I imagine it would be pretty horrible if we didn't have both, because whoever's left would be a little bit lazy, maybe don't need to have, there's no drive to make them implement new systems, new things inside the operating systems. But anyway,
I think it's interesting that, and I actually like this, that this has happened. So there's a lot of programs that are out there that are now compatible with either or. Yeah. And I think that was a really cool thing when they began doing that transition, because I do remember the time and age where everything Microsoft was Microsoft. Everything Apple was Apple. Now you've got Microsoft Excel, Word, and all the other stuff that is compatible with the Apple computer as well as the Microsoft computer. You still have programs and apps that are exclusive to each, but as far as like the main tools that everybody uses, I do think it's really cool that they have now made it, what do you want to call it, co-compatible? I don't know what you compatible, basically, not co-compatible, just compatible. So I just think that's really cool. But kind of zeroing back in on the topic of systems, I'd like to think of myself as one that works very well on a system. So much so, like my Google Calendar. So I have a basic setup schedule for each week of just the basics that are going to happen each week, no matter what. And so those are always integrated into my schedule. And then what happens is as I get more appointments and people that book in my calendar, some of those main templates that are always there in my calendar each week, some of them are movable and negotiable to where I can push one later down in the day or one earlier. Some others, not so much. Some others I really don't touch. Those are like the ones that's like, nope, I can't negotiate that time. But I find that, here's an example of that. There was a time to where I tried to work off of two calendars. One was a personal, one was a business calendar. That didn't work. That got so dang confusing. So I just merged them both into one so that I have it open at all times and I see the whole week at all times. And I know, even if it's a social event, like going out to dinner with my mom or something like that, it gets put in the calendar, because if it doesn't get put in the calendar, something else happens. And, I work really well off of systems like that, even my day-to-day routines. There are some parts that I know about my day-to-day routine that can use a little bit of scrutiny and maybe a little bit of change. But for the most part, I like having things pretty much the same thing, sometimes to my own detriment. And what I mean by that is, like, systems are one thing, but I think the opportunities, such as like what we did today on today's show, we did the intro a little different than what we normally did. I think the opportunity to invite change invites so much potential, so much richness, so much treasure, because there's so much there. So while systems have their place, we also have to remember that taking the opportunity to look at what you've always done and taking the opportunity in the present, if you will, to treat that very present moment as a brand new moment, as you should, but also treat it as an opportunity not to do what you've always done in the day, but treat it as an opportunity to look at things in a way to where maybe even switch it in a way to where, oh, wow, okay, this is the first time I've done this. And so I'm going to do it this way instead of doing it the way I've always done it. So I think systems are great, but we have to be careful not to get trapped in a system in a way to where it boxes us in.
Yeah, I think I agree and I disagree all in one go there. So I agree entirely, because we have to be looking out for the different way of doing it, the better way of doing it. But what I've got, if I've got my team of 20 people in there and they're all using this one system, I don't want each one of them having a go at a different way of doing it, because I've got to be able to rely on the outcome. You know, I want you guys making widgets, not variants of my widgets, because we sell these widgets and that's how we all earn our money, and so on. So there's got to be that. But it's a really interesting point, because no system, no process of any sort is going to stay the same forever. I mean, let's see. I've just got my overhead projector here, and I'm just going to look at a new, you know, what's an overhead projector, John? You know, no one knows what they are anymore, right? I remember the very first data projector we had at the bank, and it was a huge thing. I'm holding my hands back that you can't see, but it was about, let me see, about 3.5 feet long. Okay, it was about over 1 meter long, and it was a big box. And I remember taking it on the plane to Melbourne, and it was a major thing to carry. And it was a beautiful data projector. It could probably project, you know, probably across to where you are, Ken. But it was a huge thing, and it's out of date now. So if we had built all our systems around using a data projector or that data projector, no matter how good it was, it doesn't work like that anymore. Even just the rules we've got. So in my CRM, I had to go in and sign up to have all the emails go out under my personal email all over again, probably similar to what you did, Ken, because there's a new privacy law that came in and said, you know, you can't just send it out from, in my case, Ontraport, in your case, Kajabi, and so on. It has to go out from somebody recognizable, an entity. And so we've got legislation that influences the changes in systems. We've got new materials that influence the change in systems. We've got new people who come in with better ideas. We've got that idea that just sometimes we say, you know what, I'm sitting down here and I got my nice glass of wine and I'm sitting there thinking, I reckon we could do that differently. And you just have a thought and you go in and explore it. There's always going to be a need to change what we do, but it's the fundamentals that we've got to make sure. And this is where, from my perspective, I'm always saying, wait a sec, what are the things that we can change in systems? The only 3 things we can change is time, cost, quality. And then every one of those, we've got to be thinking of it in terms of the risk and the benefit. So the risk, what will this do that could potentially harm myself, my business, in terms of safety, reputation, finance, money, you know, all those things. But what are the risks? Because we've got to make sure that if we change that system, we've got to make sure that we're managing those risks and improving the risk situation at least, or hopefully improving it, at least maintaining it was what it was. And obviously we're also looking for a benefit in that. So risk and benefit, the only reason any of us are in business, any business, no matter how big, how small, the only reason we can stay in business is because we can manage the risk more effectively than our opposition, and we can achieve benefits more effectively than our opposition in the eyes of our clients. So yeah,
it's interesting, and I know I've been a little bit of a perfectionist in the past, just a wee bit. I know I'm the only one who's been like this. So you know, I've had just a wee bit. So there's a great saying: "Don't let perfection get in the way of progress." Right? Just start something, even if it's just a Word doc or a Google doc. Just get it. Just brain dump. Right? I love that your business is called Brain in a Box, because a lot of systems is really just brain dumping how we do things here. Right?
And brain dumping is great. And I hear a lot of business owners say, look, you want systems, just get your team to write down what they do and then put it into a book, or get them to video what they do and put it up online, and that's your system. And I think, yep, that's great, until it's not great. Because if I just say, hey, Marianne, I want you to go and she's a great person, mind you. But if I ask Marianne to go and write down how we do our invoicing, Marianne's going to write down how Marianne does it. And she's going to capture it using her particular learning style. And it maybe happens that Mary Ann's a read-write person. So what are we going to get? Here's how you do invoicing, and it's 10 pages. And I think, okay, Mary Ann, I wonder if we could trim that back a bit. And also, Mary Ann, you know how you hate doing this bit? You haven't got it in there. So now if I give that to someone else, they're going to fail on that. And you do it automatically every time, and you haven't put in all the little things that you do automatically that someone else doesn't know. So they won't do them automatically, and they may miss those steps out. So there's a place for having, you know, I'm going to use the word methodology. We have our 5-step systems methodology, but something that even if it's just 10 questions you ask, have I considered who's going to be using this? Have I considered how they will access it? Because here I've got it in a beautiful little folder, and I'm giving it to guys in my meatworks. They're going to have bloody hands and, you know, knives and things everywhere. It's not going to stay clean for long. You know, and am I matching the learning style of the people I'm working with, you know, visual, auditory, read, write, kinesthetic. I remember going to a smash repair business, and there's this guy saying, John, I won't mention his name, but Otto was saying to me, he said, John, we've got it all in a folder. And there it was, and it was typewritten with a typewriter. You know, you could see the furry bits where his ribbon was dirty. And I said, Otto, how many people downstairs in the smash repair that I can see in the business that I can see through the window, how many of them do you reckon have read your folder? Oh, every one of them. They've all read it. And I thought, yep, because every smash repair guy, technician I've seen is always going to be a visual person. They're not a read-write person. So they're not going to be reading more than a paragraph. And then you're going to end up with something that I call reluctant compliance, where they're going to say, oh, of course I have. Girl Guide's Honor. I've looked at that. I've read every word. But they're only saying it to please you. So they're not saying it because they actually do it. So we don't want that reluctant compliance. We want enrollment. I'm doing this because I know that this is the best way of doing it. So that's the title of my book, the one best way of doing it. Because you ask 3 people, what's the best way of doing this? And you got 3 different answers. So what we want is what we agree, all 3 of us, is the one best way of doing it.
Yes. And a system is no good if no one follows it, right? Like we set up some systems in Asana, for example, and then we haven't looked back at those systems, some of those systems, right? And so now it's time, okay, how do you get your team to enroll into using the systems? We've got Brenda Pierce here. Hello, Brenda. I train someone and get them to write it out. So that's interesting, Brenda. I think you'll find some interesting things in what John just said there about training someone and getting them to write it out. They'll do it in their style. They'll probably miss things. So, yeah. So how do you get people to follow the system?
Exactly. And as you said there, and I want to emphasize that, having good systems is fantastic. Having good systems that people put into practice and use is a lot better. And having good systems that people use and question without changing until they've got approval is even better still. So it really does come down to that, getting people, and I agree with you there, Brenda, train people and get them to capture it, because we want it to be in their words, and that's fantastic. But we also want to make sure that they've got everything down there, because it's my business. It's not their business. I want to capture what we want in our business. I want it to go this way. So Ken's little series of emails going out, we've agreed, and Ken's worked out that the best time to have them go is, 3 days for 1 day, etc., 11 minutes and so on. All of those times, it isn't okay, Mary Ann, if you now go and change that to, oh yeah, I do this one 45 minutes and I don't bother about that 2-minute one, etc. That's anarchy. That's not a system.
All right.
So
yeah, and that's why I didn't quite change too many of the real primary emails.
Yeah.
I did sort of mess with the times a little bit, but the general format I left the same. Why? Because that template is there on purpose, because those are the typical times that have been proven to be successful. And so in that case, John, I definitely can see where you disagreed and then you agreed. And I think you made a great distinction between the two. So there are systems in place that we absolutely should, no matter what, follow. But then aside from those foundational systems, there is also always opportunities to grow. This is where we now start branching out from those foundational systems. The foundation is always there. It's the same aspect. So it's the same aspect of, take for example, hey, I'm a Christian, my foundation will never change. My foundation being Christ as my Lord and Savior, that will never change in my life. Now, the things that I learn and the character that I learn about God and all these other things, those are going to evolve. Those are going to change. And so I think you very well stated that. And the other thing that I want to mention here, which is important, especially when you're developing systems and you're trying to get an overall communication in a group of people, say 3 to 5 people, and get them to all agree with your system. I think another key vital thing, and this word popped in my mind as you were using that illustration, I think one key and vital thing to getting everybody to agree on that one system is communication. And I don't think a system can operate without communication.
Yeah.
What's your thoughts on that, John?
Communication. I've worked with thousands of clients, and by working with them, I don't mean I drove past their business on a bus. I mean, I was in the business working with them in person for a week, typically at a time, and many clients, many days longer than that. It is always going to be a matter of having systems that people will comply with and follow. Mm-hmm. And there's a couple of things I want to bring into that, and you've got to have people own it. So we want to get to accountability. If I'm a business owner, I want people to say, yes, John, I'm doing it. I'm doing it the way we agreed was the one best way. Don't worry, I'll be doing that whether you're watching me or not, because that's critical. And that's accountability. And the trouble for that is, and a lot of people realize this too late, unfortunately, is that none of us can make someone else accountable. I can say, I hold you accountable for this, Marianne. And Marianne's sitting there, oh, dear, yes, of course I will. But she's got her fingers crossed or something, I don't know. And so on. So people will only make themselves accountable if they own it. And they will only own it if they're involved in it or have involved themselves or adopted it in some way themselves. So we have a little triangle, involvement leads to ownership, and ownership leads to accountability. And it's the only way you can get there. I can tell somebody, I hold you accountable, but they have to agree. They have to say, yes, thank you for that. And I will make myself accountable because I'm the only person who can, and so on. So it's a crucial point.
That's a great one. And so for someone like Brenda, who's training someone and getting them to write it out, which she is actually involving them. So what's a great way to then take them to the next level where they actually, what would she do from there?
So for me, we capture that, but I love doing something else. Now, my background is education, and I talk about upside down training. So typically what we do when we train people is that here we've got that person up the top of the pyramid, and they are the knowledgeable person, the expert, and I'm going to train you guys in what to do. Who learns the most in any teaching or training situation? The trainer, the teacher. So what we don't want is to have that. So what we're going to do is to hopefully flip it upside down. So if I were anyone, Brenda included, I would be saying, now, I'm going to train you. We're going to capture it. What I want you to do is to train the team, train the other guys. So get them, because that's where I want the expertise. I don't want to be the expert in something you have to do. So if you train somebody else, I know you're going to become more knowledgeable and experienced in doing that, and the other guys are going to enjoy it too. So we always recommend get the team to train the team. You train somebody in the team, get them to do it. And that works. It's rewarding, and they'll probably fall on their face maybe the first time or feel a bit insecure, and you'll be there to support them, and you'll make sure that you've primed them and prepped them up beforehand so that when they go into it, they're not going in like a duck, we're waiting to have its head chopped off. They're going in thinking, hey, this is a bit anxious, but I reckon it'll be good, and so on. And they do actually typically will learn how to do it, and they feel much more confident.
That's a great idea.
The focus on I'm following your systems. No, now we're following our systems. Sorry.
I love that.
I like that. Go ahead, Aldwyn.
And if you only have one team member, then you could actually have that team member train you, right?
Yep. Get them to train you back and get them. I mean, we do this anyway. We say, now I've told you, now tell me what I said, just so I know you understand, right? We do it. It's normal. It's reflective understanding. But what we want to do now is to put that, we've got some idea that stops when you move away from a personal situation. We should be doing that in business as well.
And you know what? The really cool thing about doing that system, and I really, really, really like that way of doing things, kind of flipping everything on top of its head. And the cool thing about it is you definitely touched on it. It creates such a sense of unity within the team.
Yeah.
It not only creates the unity, but now you always want to duplicate yourself, but now you're duplicating yourself in a way that's just levels higher than what most people duplicate themselves at. And you're also creating equalness, meaning nobody feels like they're above or under anyone. Everyone feels like they are a part of one entire thing, and they all work together. I like that. And I actually would like to see more corporations, if you will, work that way. I think you would find there's a lot more success. Customer service would go through the roof. People, the overturn on a lot of jobs would be so dang low. And that's, you know what, that's actually interesting. So a little bit of an example of turnover for you. So there's actually, I was noticing it the other night. My mom and I were out at our favorite sushi restaurant. And I was kind of just, for a moment, I was sitting there and I was thinking, I'm like, wow, we pretty much know everybody that works here on a semi-personal level. And it got me to thinking, I'm like, what is this guy's turnover rate? And I don't think I rarely see new employees come into his business. It's always the same team. It's always the same people. And then I got to kind of just like thinking about, well, look at how he treats them. They're always in a conversation together. They're always like giggling to one another while they're making sushi rolls and stuff like that. They're always just at just such a unity level, and they're always happy. And I think that's the key in a lot of businesses. Is treating your employees not as employees, treating them as family and as a literal part of the team in a way that not many people do. I think that's key. And every time I see that business model, it's evident. And it stands out.
It really does. I remember back in 1998, I was working for a company, Fishtech and Partners and so on. And what we did, the partners wasn't the business partners, it was the people in the company. And we stopped calling people employees and we started calling them associates. Now, it's only a word change, but it was actually a mindset change that went before that. If you think about employee, it comes from the French word employer, the verb, to use. And if we think about it, that's what we're doing. We're using that person's skill and experience to create this widget. We don't want to be doing that. We want to associate with people, and they're only going to be there if they want to associate with us. So as you say, there's a mutual benefit. The people in that sushi restaurant want to be there. They feel at home there. They feel they're attuned to things. I know how it works, and I feel accepted, and I'm enjoying it, and so on. People will always do things they like more. So it is really important to make sure that we have that communication. That's that big one we talked about right at the beginning. Communication is the key. Every time I walk into a business and I see problems, the first thing I'm looking at is the communication. And is it somebody at the top who's a bit autocratic? Is it somebody at the bottom who undermines what the guy at the top tries to do, and so on? All the different things that come down to the hurdles we put in place in the way of good communication. I want to come to one other thing that's been sort of hanging around in the background with the last few points we've made, and that is compliance. So this relates to me getting people to do it exactly this way or otherwise, or having variations, allowable variations. This comes down to getting people involved. You can guarantee that if you go into that sushi restaurant, and you've been there often enough, they all come out the same way. There's an element of consistency there. So that comes down to compliance. Now, a lot of people think it's a nasty word, oh, geez, don't tell me we've got to comply.
I have to admit, when you said that word, I was just like, ugh, I don't like that word.
Yep. And that's exactly what people think. I'm going to put it to you a different way. And this is a way that used to impact me quite a lot, because I used to fly a lot. I'd go flying all over the countryside to, everywhere to work with clients. And if we think about most of the processes in your respective businesses, what level of compliance do you want with the agreed best way of doing it, your systems? Do you want 100% compliance?
Yes. Yes, 100% would be good.
Ken's got a different view. Ken's thinking maybe not 100%. Is that right, Ken?
I think I'm more thinking in the aspect of, so again, when it comes to the foundations, the core foundations, yes. When it comes to the personality and being creative and using your talents and being open to other and being flexible, no.
Yep. And I'm happy with that. I'm very happy with that. Like a composer creates a beautiful piece of music, and then they capture the music, and the music's written down. Anyone who plays it will not play it the same way as the original composer. They'll play it differently because they love this and they make it a bit slower and sweepier, and they make this bit do that and so on. That's good. That's creativity personified in a system, which is the written music. But let's look at our systems now. And I agree, not all systems have to have the same level of compliance. They don't all have to be 100%. If I say, oh, can I have a coffee, please? Yeah, 1 sugar. And if somebody gets that teaspoon of sugar and somebody fills that teaspoon a little bit heaped or a little bit flat or under, I'm not going to say, oh, you put 0.1 of a gram too little sugar in this or something. I'm just going to say, oh, thank you. Hey, maybe a little bit more sugar next time. Okay, but we're not going to measure it. Okay, but there are some things, and so we'd probably say, you know what, probably 60%, 70% compliance might be okay for the sugar in my coffee and so on. Something like that. There'll be some allowance there. Doesn't really matter. It doesn't affect anything. But think about, I'm going to go to what I used to do a lot of, flying. And if you fly a lot, you'll appreciate this one. Sydney Airport. We agreed 100%. And some people say, oh, well, I'd want 99% then. It's got to be at least 99%. I'd be happy with that. Let's look at what 99% means, because it's so close to 100 that you think it's got to be very, very good. Sydney Airport has around about 800 flights per day. LAX has around about 1,500, I think it's 1,500 or 15,000, 1,500 flights per day. 1% of my Sydney Airport, of those things, of those takeoffs and landings not going well, means that we've got eight incidents per day.
Per day. Let's compound
day.
the math in our mind. Per day.
Yep, that's per day. Imagine LAX with 15 crashes or incidents. I'm going to call it incidents per day. I mean, we hear about the one every now and then. I can't remember the last time there was a crash in Sydney Airport. Sydney Airport. I remember somewhere back in the 80s, and a plane took off and dropped an engine, but that's years ago, 30, 40.
Let's take that a step further, though, and let's go a little bit more extreme. Now, I've been skydiving. And so to give this a little preference, the first time that I went skydiving was only just the one time. And I do want to go back and experience that again, because that was just fun. But anyhow, my guy that I went with, my tandem guy, I remember asking him, I said, so what jump is this for you? He's like, oh, this will be my 3,000 jump. Interesting in the back of my mind. Guess what I was thinking? I wasn't thinking, oh, well, this guy's great at it. He's got a lot of experience. I was thinking, what are the chances he's jumped so many times? What are the chances that I'm going to be the mistake? Yeah. And so if you take that 1% and you apply it to his 3,000, how devastating can that be?
Yeah. Yep. Exactly. So you're happy with him. I imagine you were anyway, going through and checking everything right. Let me check that. You've done your buckle up. Let me check that. Not accepting your, yes, I've done it. And so on. Have we got this? Have I got that? Or every box has to be ticked there. We can't go along and say, as long as we get 89 or 99 out of the 100 boxes ticked, we're okay to go, and we'll drop out of the plane. So there are times when we need that high level of compliance, when we need everyone to follow it exactly as it is. But the point is, if we only follow what's written down or captured in our systems, we would still be using the same systems we used back in the time of Babylon. Okay. And we're not. So we do have to have that bit where we're going through and saying, hey, what can we improve? What can we do here? And that's where we're looking at, new materials, new training, new people, different ideas, legislation that kicks this into action and so on. But we've got to have that, like a system is good, and then we review it periodically to see, hey, does this still do what it does as well as we thought it did? I reckon that could be working. That could be done better. And it's a great deal easier to review your systems if you've got them captured, written down, or in a video, or in a flow chart, or however you do it. It's always going to be easier to look at something and test it on there rather than think, how do you think it's going? Oh, I reckon it's okay. It doesn't tell me anything. And likewise, coming back to another point we made a while ago there about changes, if we make one change, say there are 5 steps in this system, 4 steps, because I've only got 4 fingers, you can see. There are my 4 fingers. Okay, and we change one of those steps. If we get a different outcome, we can say, oh, it's probably because we changed that step. And I changed one thing out of the 4 steps. If I change 2 things, oh, there's a change in the system. Oh, well, it's going to be one of these, we don't know where the change is. So when we do make change, we want to sort of limit the changes so we can say, all right, what about if we change that and see what that impact is, what the impact of that change is? Did it make it better or worse? Okay, not sure about that. What about if we put that one back how it was and now change this one? By being careful about how we change, we can actually work out what's an improvement. Otherwise, everything works beautifully. We change 5 things and nothing works. We don't know what it is. We don't know how we did it, and so on. So a few things in there.
So true. Test and measure, as they say. And that's where people, when they're doing landing pages and things, they might just change the headline and test that for a bit, or just change the picture and see what happens. Yeah.
But what you're not doing is to change the headline, change the keywords, or change this and change that, and I'm going to do something else, etc., and make it really different. Change. We're not going to do that. We're going to stay focused on test one thing, see what it did, test this, or do an A/B test, and so on. A works better than B. Why is it? Oh, because of this, maybe, and so on. But being systematic is that little bit there. And I want to relate it to compliance is another really key point for me, which is, what do we do when somebody does do the wrong thing? The wrong thing being not what's in the system, obviously. So I'm not talking about anything outside that. Pardon me. If we've said that, like, we provide you with the system, we give you the tools that you need to do that carefully, and we've trained you, because it's always going to be systems plus training plus support. Those 3 things are critical. If we've got that systems, training, and support in place, and then somebody still does something wrong, we have to follow what I call the 3 most important words in systems. And it's going to sound like a negative thing, because as soon as I use the first word, someone's going to say, what? You're saying that? Listen to it carefully, though. So I want to make sure we listen to it and understand it. Those 3 words are confront every breach. Now, it doesn't mean confront as in you don't, and so on, and get angry or annoyed. Violence and aggression are always wrong, obviously. But it's going to be, hey, Bill, you did something other than what we talked about, what we agreed was the best way of doing it. Can you explain why? Okay, so sometimes it might just be, Bill, go back to doing what we're doing, because we're making aircraft engines here and they've got to fly for every time. But we want to come back. We've got to confront the breach to find out whether it is a mistake that somebody's doing because they just forgot. Sometimes people change the process because they're trying to help you. So Marianne's doing those invoices we talked about earlier, and no, forget about the invoices. She's moved on. I'll change Marianne. Let's just say somebody else, Bill. Bill is doing a proposal, and Bill's done my proposals for years, and I trust him implicitly. And then I say, Bill, I want you to get this one out, this proposal out this afternoon. It's got to go out by 3 o'clock. And Bill, this is super critical. If we don't get this, I don't know what's going to happen. And so Bill comes in and he says, John, you'll be really pleased. I got it out. And it's now 2 minutes past 3. I got it out about 5 minutes ago. Oh, phew, thanks, Bill. hey, Bill, can I have a look at what you actually sent? Just love to look at it. And I go there and I look at it and I think, oh, no, the pricing's all wrong. This is wrong. That's not working. And Bill says, yeah, but I was going to check those things, but you said I've got to get it out by 3 o'clock. So I was helping you by, doing it quicker, doing it, etc. So sometimes people don't follow the system because they're trying to be useful. They're trying to help. Critical thing. Yeah.
Very, very, very interesting. And for those who might be challenged with systems, would you recommend using a mind mapping system to start with, or where would you start with your systems?
Yeah, we will always. I'm looking at one right now. We've got a mind map. I've got a mind map in front of me with the points I want to make sure I cover, or would like to cover if they come up in the conversation. But for me, anything which is going to capture something that's broad and without going too deep on it is going to help you. So whether that is putting up some post-it notes on a wall or doing something and then maybe grouping them under different things or putting it into a mind map, anything that lets you be broad and shallow, in other words, we're not going into detail, is the best place to start. So we start with a mind map simply because I can do it, everyone can see it, and someone can say, oh, I just thought of something else, and we can see a place to put it. We put it there. And we can either continue on with that new point or we can go back to where we were. So the mind map works the way our brain works. Our brain doesn't start at 1 and end up with 10. Typically we go 1, 2, 3, fish. Yeah, I'm going to have the fish for dinner. That's right. And so on. Our brain doesn't go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 every time. So we want to be able to capture anything that can jump in. So that's where post-it notes work well. Mind mapping works well. Putting things down in a list on a piece of paper doesn't work well because no one wants to go back and, oh, I should have put a new one in between there. I'm going to have to ruin my list. So, it doesn't work. It doesn't work well.
Here's the problem. Now, see, I use Post-it notes, but see, I use it to my own detriment. If you could see my wall and if you could see oftentimes what happens is I'll have a thought and I'll be like, oh, I want to remember that. And so I'll write it down and it goes over here. And I'll have another thought and that goes over here. And oh yeah, that's a great idea. That goes over here. I get so many Post-it notes though.
Yeah.
It actually becomes an ineffective system because oftentimes I will re-glance at my wall and go, oh yeah, that was a couple weeks ago. I haven't done that yet.
Yeah.
You gotta, it's just kind of like one of those things where you've really got to be careful. Post-it notes can be useful, but then if you get to a place like me, they get buried and then they get forgotten about. And then one day when you're going through and you're trying to clean things up, you're just like, ah, dang it, that was a good idea. I still need to do that. It just, so what would you say to those kind of systems, and how to conquer through those? Like me, I've got a wall through of Post-it notes, and a lot of them are kind of one on top of another, and you can't see what was underneath the other one,
Yeah. So, you got to have that bit where we're using it to a point. So if I think of a mind map, I've got all my things there, and then I'm going to go through and make them hierarchically correct. This one's more important than that one, and so on. And I'm going to whip out the rubbish. We talk about slap it down, then refine. So just slap it down first because I want to keep the mind open. Don't judge when we're doing it. Don't sort of, no, Bill, that's wrong. Bill's going to shut up now because we just said in effect, shut up, Bill. Right. So we're going to let Bill put down something we know is wrong. And we keep on going with that. But then at the end of the exercise, then we're going to say, all right, now let's make some sense of it. And so now we're going to say, if we were capturing everything we think we need systems for in a mind map or with those Post-it notes, at the end of that, now we're going to say, right, let's take the ones we're going to work on, and then we would put them onto a Kanban, like to do, doing, done, that sort of thing. I mean, we have our own little one right here. I'm looking at it, but it's there ready to go into, and that now takes it from that necessary bedlam, which is just slap it down. Then we refine it, we sort them, we put them into some order, or we move them around our mind map, and then we take them from that and we say, right, we've got 20 things that we think we need to systemize. This week, we're going to work on that one and that one and that one. and then we're going to capture them. And then, of course, the next thing is where do we put them once we've got them captured? Whether it's in a flowchart or a Word document or a doc of some sort or a set of videos or whatever, where do we put them so everyone can get to them? Communication again.
You just kind of gave me an idea. So I could create something like that. So Apple just recently came out with a free app that's basically a whiteboard, and you can create as many as you want. And it's infinite, basically. And so as you were talking about that, I'm like, you know what I could do? I can create like a whiteboard and like make this section, okay, here's all the things. And so I could take all of this and computerize it and go, okay, here's all the things. And then I can take and I can move each sticky note to, okay, this is priority, this is priority, this is priority. But see, here's the thing. What I need to now do is I need now to create a habit of doing that on a regular basis. Because what I will tend to do, and this is just me being open, raw, and honest, what I will tend to do is create that intention and maybe do it once or twice, and then it gets forgotten about, and then we're back to square one, a bunch of random notes all over the place. So, I mean, it's kind of like my own nemesis, if you will, but so basically all that to say, I do like that idea of prioritizing and kind of doing like a mind map. What I would just need to do is purposefully set an intention to view it at least once a week on a regular basis, instead of just doing it once or twice and then forgetting about it.
You think about a lot of entrepreneurs, people who are initiators. They will have an idea or spark or hear something and say, I could do that with this. Wow. Big impetus there, but they're not good handle turners. They're not good at, and keeping the handle going along. If I use that aeroplane we were talking about before, I talk about the pilot versus the engine. If I'm the entrepreneur or the business owner, let's just say that, if I'm the business owner, I should not be part of the engine. Because if I'm part of the engine, I'm just there. Yeah, hang on, I can't talk at the moment. I've got to keep on making this thing go. You're doing some silly things and looking like that. Whereas if I'm the pilot, I'm at the front saying, okay, the plane's running beautifully because the engine is well tuned and so on. And there's a system there. And I'm seeing where we're going to go in the future. What am I doing? Where are we headed? And so on. And so we've got to have that view where when we're putting those Post-it notes up on the wall, that's sort of the engine, putting it there. But then we've got to now say, all right, from all of that, what can I turn it into? What systems do we need? We've got to have that differentiation between being the pilot and being the engine. So,
Yeah, I love that. And I was just thinking back to skydiving. I actually went skydiving in Hawaii, and I was shocked how many systems they had in place, how many times they told us, you can die by doing this. You can die by doing this. You can die. And how many times we had to sign, yes, we know we can die by doing this. Yes, we know we can die by doing, like, we must have signed about 5. And I mean, in America, they're very they're very worried about people, suing them. I think probably more so than Australia, although Australia's right up there as well. So it's interesting when it's a life or death situation, how many systems can be in place. And even just recently on the Gold Coast, I went on a jet ski safari. And I was doubling up on this jet ski safari with another lady. Now, unfortunately, on the way back, we had an accident, and I actually ended up smashing my shoulder into the jet ski. She smashed her lip. And basically, she was the one who was riding the motorbike. I say motorbike. She said she's ridden motorbikes for years, right? That's what she said to me. And she was going, and she said, "Oh, yeah, I've ridden jet skis heaps of times." And so I just trusted as she's streaming along, coming back from South Stradbroke Island back to the Gold Coast, and I'm holding on the back. I'm just trusting she knows how to operate a jet ski, right? However, what happened is that there was a big wave that came, and instead of going across the wave, she went with the wave, which ended up flipping us. Right, which most people who ride jet skis know you don't go with the wave, you go across the wave, right? And it actually wasn't explained by the jet ski guys either, by the way. But anyway, here we are. This happened in December, and here we are in March, and I've still got a sore shoulder from that. But what happened with the system with the jet ski safari crew? They, as soon as we got back from our jet skis, and I mean, we ended up getting rescued. We both landed in the water. We lost our sunglasses. I lost jewelry that all landed in the ocean and whatever. And they had a jet ski right there that picked us up and got us up on another jet ski. But as soon as we got back, two of their guys, one of them took her separately, one of them took me separately with a form. And they said, okay, what happened? And we recommend you get an x-ray, and we recommend, like, they separated us to get our stories individually in case it ever goes to court, right? Because I was very aware of it. I thought, how interesting. They've separated us to get her story with one guy, and they made sure they were onto us the minute we got back, right? Because they have been sued before. And I actually asked them, I said, does this happen often where you have jet ski accidents? He said, well, actually one time, he said there was a lady riding and another jet ski went right over the top of her and broke her back because he just went too fast. And I mean, it doesn't happen that often, but it does happen, right? And I found that fascinating. So I've been really observing other people's systems. I've been observing how they do things and what I like and what I don't like and what works and what doesn't work.
Exactly. And that's how you learn. And I just want to bring up risk and benefit that we saw in that. Sorry, Ken, you go.
Yes, yes.
Okay. So all I'm going to do is just add to Aldwyn's story here, especially with the skydiving incident. I totally resonate with the before process. It's intimidating. It is the before process is way more intimidating than jumping out of the plane. And that was my experience. They even went as far to where they sat us all down, the group of us that were going, they sat us all down and made us watch a 15-minute video of their lawyer basically saying that if we try to sue them, we're not going to be successful. And then they bring you through all the paperwork. I mean, and they took the paperwork the next level. So your paperwork was one thing, but check this out. They even had clause in there to where, they had a clause in there to where if your tandem guy decides to commit suicide, we're not responsible. That was one of them. The other one was if you get out on the field or you land on the field or whatever and you get bit by a snake, we're not responsible. They covered everything. Then you watch this video training you on what position to be in when you get out of the plane. And I don't remember how it was worded in the video. I just remember, the guy in the video said, when you jump out of the plane, if you are not in this position, your tandem guy cannot control you. That's all I heard. My tandem guy will not be able to control me. Automatically in my head, I'm thinking, oh shit. Okay, so I need my legs to be here and my arms need to be here. We're going up in the plane. Oh, I can't forget about my legs and my arms. We are now at the door, getting ready to jump out of the plane. The thought I was going to have, which is, oh my gosh, that second guessing and then maybe choose not to go and everything else did not even occur to me. I did not even have time to have those thoughts. The only thing that was going through my mind is, okay, are my legs where they're supposed to be? Are they curled? Am I in the banana position? Am I like this? And all of a sudden we're out of the plane. There was no, like everybody says, that they're second guessing and they had that moment. I never had that moment. I didn't have a chance. They make the process of getting to that point so freaking it's very intimidating. You wonder, is it actually worth it? In the beginning part of it. Anyhow, John, back to you.
I want to bring out a really critical point in both of the stories there. The first time those guys took somebody up, probably their brother or sister or someone in the family or a friend, took them up and helped them come out of the plane, do you reckon they had those systems in place? And you reckon the wave jet ski, whatever, people had that in place there?
No.
And you reckon all those clauses, if you do this, if you fall here, if a snake bites you, etc. The snake bite one came because presumably someone came down and there was a snake. Maybe they got bitten, maybe they didn't, but they realized, wow, we aren't covered for that, and so on. All the little things that are there come about because we review what we do and we fix it. So there's that wonderful old saying, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I want to put that one to bed, because if it ain't broke, it just means, well, we haven't discovered what could have broken it and so on. I would be saying, let's just look at it anyway, please, because we're going to find something that we probably could have done, should have protected ourselves against, a risk we haven't managed or a benefit we haven't achieved that would give a better result. And it's like that. I mean, you only have to look at, I'm going to go as far as Kodak. I'll go there. Kodak was a major, film company everywhere. They still make film, they still make photographic paper and so on, but they've shrunk relative to all the others who are there now. Why did they? Because they didn't focus on all the benefits. Kodak invented the digital camera. And I used to have a Kodak. I still have it there, Kodak digital camera. Beautiful little thing. But it's nothing like all the other cameras, of forgetting about the ones that are in our phones now. But they didn't look for the improvement, for the opportunity to add to and enhance something that they were working on. And it really comes down to that. You got to be watching it all the time.
And my dad used to say, life is too short to experience everything yourself, right? However, now, of course, we have ChatGPT, and now we can just pop in there, what are all the things that can go wrong with skydiving, right? Or whatever your business is.
Oh, Lord.
And now everything's at our fingertips. Whereas once upon a time, as you said, we had these old projectors, we had fax machines. Oh my gosh, what happened to fax machines? It's so much. What happened to film photography? So much has changed in the world of technology. And if we don't embrace these changes and adjust our systems as we go, then we're going to get left behind.
That's right.
And
you'll be way out of it. You'll be right down there, and we've got to bring our people along with us. And that's another point, that sometimes what happens is that we've got somebody who, let's go back to Bill. Bill's still sitting there. Marianne's out around the corner there, but Bill's there, and Bill has been doing this, and Bill had this task, he did this process or this system he had to run when he was in this position. But Bill's moved up and he's crept up a little bit in the business, and he's up the top there somewhere, but he still does what he used to do. And we want to take it away from him, but he says, no, I'll do that one, thank you, I'm going to stay there. And the problem is that now you've got Bill doing something that could be done by somebody who doesn't cost the business as much or doesn't need to spend that time doing it. And Bill probably should be spending his time steering the plane, doing something, or steering the business and doing something more worthy of his skills and experience. And so what we have to do is what we call roll the monkeys down the hill. Because what we do is to tend to take everything with us. Think of those monkeys as being, the monkey on my back, as in the responsibility I hold. So when I go here, I've got these 5 things that I have to do. It's only me who can do them. They're on my back. But the trouble is, when I go further up in the organization, in my little business, I should be looking for opportunities to say, you know what? I reckon Bill could be doing this thing now, or Marianne could be doing that thing, or somebody else could be doing this. And then I'd train them and we'll make sure they understand the systems and so on to do it. But I'm going to roll that monkey off my back and put it onto their back or someone else's back. So when we're looking at systems, that reviewing of systems that is so important, we identify opportunities and risks. In doing that, we're also going to realize, you know what? I've been doing this all the time, but now we've got new tools, and ChatGPT has shown us how we can do our marketing better, et cetera, et cetera. I reckon you could do that, someone else, and so on. That frees me up to do higher value things, et cetera. So we want to be thinking in terms of that, the $100 an hour person and the $10 an hour person. The $100 an hour, it's just a metaphor, it's not the amount, but that high value person should be doing high value work. The lower value person, or the lower cost to the business person, should be doing the work that matches that in terms of risk and benefit. So it's really, to me, crucial thing.
Yeah, great points. And how often do you think we should review our systems? Should this be a constant tweaking of the system, or should we sort of make time every quarter, or, what do you recommend?
Yeah, it comes down to, again, the risk and the complexity. So if I've got a system that we've got, which is how we distribute the mail in the office, geez, you know what? Let's not worry about reviewing it. Let's just wait till someone complains or something goes wrong. And then we might say that's enough. That'll trigger us to, hey, did you get that letter? No, I didn't get it. That's the second one I haven't got this week. Oh, maybe that's a good time to go and fix that one. But when it's something that is a higher risk, in other words, if it goes bad, if something goes wrong, it's going to hurt the business, then that one we want to look at more frequently. Or we might sort of say we're going to look at this after we've run it 3 times, or after 1 week or 1 month, whatever the right time frame would be. But we'd be looking at in a short time frame or a short number of instances. Whereas something where there is less risk, less complexity, we've got higher familiarity with it. To an extent, we might stretch that one out and say, let's look at that one once a year. but let's look at this one once a quarter. You know what? This one's brand new. I want to look at it after we've put 3 projects through it, or after we've done this. So it's going to be variable, but it's going to be a function of the risk to the business and the complexity that we have in that process. That means you're more likely to identify the things that are going to go wrong. I don't want to get a year down and realize, oh, geez, you're telling me that we could have had 20% more all the time for every project we've run this year using that system? Wow. Why didn't somebody tell me? Well, we didn't capture that. We didn't schedule the review. So, yep.
Yeah,
Definitely.
It's so important. It really is. Systems really are the big rock part of your business. It's really like building the foundation of the house. And as I say, I have not been good with systems. I own it 100%. I have definitely not been good. I've probably done things harder rather than easier and with more flow having systems. And I do get that structure creates freedom. It's one of my favorite sayings, structure creates freedom. However, for me, it feels like it's something that's been really challenging to learn and to get my head around. However, nowadays, thanks to Dale Beaumont and Business Blueprint, will I ever have to do this again? If yes, build a system. And that's what I do now. So I think to myself, okay, am I ever going to do this again? And now I don't overcomplicate. I just go, okay, step 1, step 2, step 3. And then we can always tweak it later, right? So I just get something down.
That's right.
And I don't have my Google site set up yet. And one day I will, John, and I'm going to come to you.
We'll do it. We'll schedule it. No, we'll schedule it tomorrow. Today, maybe. Yeah.
Just another interesting thing that I'll share too. So step 1, step 2, just do it, fix it later, kind of just reminds me to the very beginning days of when I launched my own branded company back in the summer of 2020. I remember my founding mentor. I remember something he told me back in those days, and he's like, "Look," he's like, "this is what I want you to do." He's like, "I want you to set a date. I want you to announce the date. I want you to announce it on Facebook. And I want you to, develop your first webinar. Back then we call it a webinar. Now it's masterclass. I want you to put together your webinar, and I want you to put together an online course that people can buy into." And so I thought I was being smart by setting a date for 2 weeks out and then announcing it. Little did I know how much of a fire that would light underneath my freaking ass. I had to book it to get those things done because I had announced it, and he was helping me promote it. He was sharing my stuff on his profile. He was getting me out there, and I'm like, oh shit, I've got to get it done now by this particular date. And, it's like, so trying to be the perfectionist and get everything done perfectly and right at the same time was not a factor. It was a factor of put it together, get it out there. I can refine it later. And that was probably the best thing he could have done for me, because that's what really began to birth my business and give me a foundation to now work off of, and then now build other systems on top of that, and then refine it. Now I'm actually going back into that old online course and going, geez, this thing is outdated. Now I've got to update it, and I need to add this video set. I need to add this. I'm going to take this out because I've learned this and that. That's not applicable anymore. And but overall, and maybe especially in the beginning when you're building a foundation, I definitely don't think being a perfectionist and trying to do everything all right at the very first part is important. Just get it out there, build your foundation. That's also part of the system.
Exactly. Dominic, one of the very senior managers in Banque Nationale de Paris when I was working there, put that pretty well, as he said, en français, le bien vaut mieux que le meilleur. Which sounds really cool in French. In English,
I love it. Yeah, it actually does sound really cool.
Wow. Keep speaking, John. Keep speaking. That's amazing.
Good is better than best. It's as simple as that. If we do this, it will be good. let's not aim for perfection yet. Let's stay here and do the good, because we can always make it better. We can always tweak it as we move along. But right now, I'd like to have something that works. It may not work perfectly, but it works. And then we can go that little bit further. And then we can go that little bit further. I don't know whether you've seen that show Alone, you know, where they throw 10 people into the wilderness somewhere and they then let them survive, and they can take a knife and whatever else. They can take very limited things with them. And you'll get some there who will start straight away on trying to build a castle. You know, they're sawing down woods with a little knife, or, you know, whatever, sawing down the trees and things and trying to make this house that's going to last forever. And they've sort of gone straight to, it's got to be perfect. Whereas really, I'd probably be going the old Maslow thing, you know, food, warmth, shelter first, and get the basics there, because that's good. If I can feed myself tomorrow, that's good. I can always make it better, but I want to start off with good, and good enough, if you want to add that extra word to it. You know, good enough is okay. It may not be where you want to end up, and it shouldn't be where you want to end up, because that's probably mediocrity you're aiming for there. But it's a good starting point, and you can always go that bit further.
Yeah, love that. And there's a great book called Good to Great, of course. So you can always go from good to great. If you're going from great to good, then you might want to relook at your systems. Right?
Yes, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, that's for sure.
Yeah, and I've got a good tip for Ken on the Post-it notes. Now, I actually did a whole weekend retreat where I worked on my intellectual property models, my IP models, right, for my business. And we used Post-it notes this whole weekend in Melbourne. We used Post-it notes to map out our system of how we did the business. And I tell you what, since I've created those systems, I have been, you know, it's probably 10 years ago, I still use those systems to this day. I created my 7 awesome steps to publicity. And how we did it is we just went, okay, so what do we do in our business? What's the first thing we do? The second, and we just did Post-it notes for everything. And then on the wall, we just had, okay, what's the first thing we do? What's everything we do in that first step? And then just put all the little Post-it notes, everything we do in that first step. We actually put it in a line so that it wasn't on top of each other. It was underneath that we could see. And then, okay, what's the next thing we do? And then we put everything underneath that. What's the next thing? That put everything that came to mind around that step, we put it in there. And then from there, I created the acronym AWESOME. And the AWESOME stands for, A is articulate your story, W is for work the angles, E is, you know, they all represent something, right? So I won't go through all of it. Watch one of my webinars to get the whole thing, but you get the idea. And so that was a great way to map out, have those Post-it notes. So what you could do, Ken, with all these Post-it notes you think you've put together, you could go, okay, you could have main categories for your, okay, one could be, okay, to follow up or to read or to act on or to whatever, like do different Post-it notes. And I think a great system I've been using, thanks to Nick Cree from Business Owners Smashing It Online, who you might remember, John, Nick Cree from, he was in Blueprint a while ago as well. And Nick actually has tech tools that he shares, similar to how Dale Beaumont shares tech tools when he has his conferences. And one of the tech tools he shared was a free Google Chrome plugin called Toby. Now, ever since he shared it, I've been using Toby to basically, when I open my computer, Toby, free plugin. And what it does, you can organize the things that you open every day, all the things you open every day. So, for example, if I now go to my Toby, I go to open a Chrome, my Toby comes up. Immediately I can see daily. I open my LinkedIn, my Discord, my Facebook, my Google Drive, my Instagram, my Google search, my Air Wallets, my membership for my gym I open daily, StreamYard, usually I'm doing something daily. I've got Common Terms, I've got my Canva, I've got all the things I open daily. And then I've got another category where I've got all my weekly things. I put everything in there. And then I've got another category was all my resources. So there they might be. So for example, last night I was watching Abraham Hicks talk about abundance and the vortex. And I thought, oh yeah, that's brilliant. I want to come and watch that one again. So I put that one into my, to watch later, or resources. And then I've got another one with all my logins for all my programs. I've got another section. So it's just really easy to get to everything. And you can actually open my daily ones. I can open all the tabs at once. I can just go open all, and it opens all, rather than sort of going manually into here. And I'm sure that just by having Toby as the plugin, and they probably should pay me an affiliate commission, but it's free, so there's no affiliate commission. But anyway, just by having Toby is a great system to save yourself time and money, right?
Now, see, I don't. So when it comes to like things I open every day, it's not necessarily things I open every day. It's things that stay open on my computer every single day. So in other words, if you've ever seen me share my screen and you've seen my web browser, it always has at least 20 tabs on it. open at all times. And so I never really close them. The only time it gets closed and refreshed is when my laptop is finally on its last leg and it's starting to dump things like my microphone and my sound, because there's no more space left for the memory to process things, because I've got so many freaking things open. So, I mean, I'm kind of the opposite. I don't open things every day. I keep them open all times and all things, so it's like,
Right. So at the end of the day, you've got to use a system that's going to work for you, right, John?
Exactly. That's it. That's it. You've got to have your system for you. And then if it's us working, then we need to agree this will work for us. And the more us's there are, the more general that system. Exactly. Yeah.
Brilliant.
But,
so, John,
I know there's got to be some people out there listening to this that are hearing my story on the way I deal with tabs and different things like that, going, I can identify with that.
Yep. I've got 3 screens here, and I'll often find that I end up with, 20 or so on that one and 30 or something on that one and 15 on this one. Not an ideal way to work, I'm sure, but it's how I end up rather than how I start out. But I do have my little set open ones when I start Chrome. These are the ones that are always going to be there, and so on at the beginning, and then I'll customize after that.
Yeah. And for a lot of people, they often have too many tabs open, not just on their computer, but in their brain. And this is the thing, 60,000 thoughts a day we have. So no wonder you're getting a lot of Post-it notes there, Ken. And it's a matter of how do we navigate these 60,000 thoughts to actually channel it into actually focusing on one thing. So what are some of your top tips for all the people you've worked with in systems, John, and all the mistakes and errors you've seen people make? What are some of the biggest tips you'll give people around getting organized with their systems?
I'd say be really clear on the things that can go wrong or have gone wrong in the past. In other words, focus on the risks and the benefits. They are the only things that keep your business running, you understanding them and responding to them. And it's the basis for systems. So you've really got to do that. I've got them on a screen here, so I'm just going to bring that across so I can see it a bit better. But involve your team members everywhere you can, because your team members will then be involved. That involvement leads to ownership. That leads to accountability. So I'd really hit on that one there. Use the language of the people in your business. So don't use great big formal words. Some people think you have to speak, it is important that the incumbent will, and so on. They start speaking this silly systems voice instead of saying, when you do this, make sure, and so on, speaking in the language you use. And then we're looking at things like encourage feedback. So the worst thing you can ever do as a business owner is to say, there it is, now do your job and shut your gob, which is what my chef used to say many years when I was cooking, and it was a matter of just do this and don't question anything. Well, that's not going to be a good thing, good outcome in the end. So there's that one. And then acknowledge, if we're involving people and so on, well, acknowledge the effort they put in, because people don't get rewarded as much by money as they do by acknowledgement and understanding. Oh, wow, Bill has just implemented something. I used to work with Macquarie Bank, and I'd go out and we were doing some work with Aussie Home Loans on mortgage management. And I would go out with the latest work I'd done for them. And the first thing I'd do would be to distribute a copy of the systems we'd written. And the first thing they did was to open it, and they'd look at the bit on the front where I listed the names of everyone who helped with it. And that's the thing they looked at first. And then when they looked at any processes we'd mapped, they'd be saying, oh, good, you got that one. That's the bit they did. We all have a selfish view on the world, and so we should capitalize on that and so on. So acknowledge the team. Make your systems exclusively available in one place so people aren't looking here for that, there for that, and so on. Try and standardize the layout and the presentation so that people get used to, this is how it works, this is what it looks like. When I get to a brand new one, I'm not looking at it and saying, oh, wow, what's this? I'm seeing something that I'm already 50% familiar with. So there's that. And then, a couple of detailed ones. Use video whenever you can, but not one of those horrible videos. Today we're going to look at how we do this. Don't do that.
No one gosh.
They're horrible. If it's a video on how we pick up the phone and do it, it's just going to say, right, reach over to your left, pick up your phone and do what you're doing and so on. Just just the steps you need
Put
rather
some
than everything
excitement into
else.
those videos and things you produce. Don't just get on the camera and go, well, hey guys, so today we're going to talk about cholesterol and all the lies that the industry has told us about cholesterol. How interested are you in about cholesterol with that tone of voice? When
That's
I
right.
come on and I talk about it, I'm just like, hey guys, guess what? Today we're going to talk about all the lies that the industry has taught us around cholesterol. Now, just by even me changing my tone, you're a lot more interested. What?
Yeah.
You know, I want to find.
Yeah.
So
I'm inviting you in. That's
Yes.
right. Exactly. And another key, I've got 2 more points, I suppose. This second last one is one I got from Keith, the Rich Dad. So Keith Cunningham. So he's a mentor to many, Robert Kiyosaki and so on. And the one thing he says is, always check, what don't I see? So he says in a beautiful Texan voice, what don't I see? I can't do that. Anyway, but he says it really well. But it really is, like we often see something, we think, oh, I know what that is. And we think we found the answer. And it's going to be, yeah, you saw that, but what didn't you see? So look again, look behind, look around, and so on. And then that last one I'd bring in as being a crucial thing for systems is confront every breach. And I don't mean rudely, I don't mean violently, aggressively, etc. But if we've agreed this is the best way to do it, the only way for everybody to do it is if we help them do the right thing. If somebody goes off the path, we help them back onto the path. It's not a matter of, getting annoyed or anything else. It's simply we help people to follow the system. And if there's a question mark, we go straight back to that third one, I think it was we mentioned, get feedback and hear people. So
Brilliant.
back to that communication.
Brilliant tips there, John. Absolutely love that. And as a place to house your systems, now I quite like Google Sites as an idea, but what else could people use other than Google Sites?
Well, if you're in the Microsoft world, you've got Microsoft SharePoint. You can create a site up there. We've probably got about a third of our clients or a quarter of our clients, something like that, in the Microsoft world, and they publish everything that we do, or we publish it for them straight onto their Microsoft site. We have it in appearance, it looks the same as it would on a Google site. There are different reasons why people have both, and that's not important for us. There are some other ones. Teamwork Spaces is another one. They each have their strengths and they each have their weaknesses. Interestingly, I was talking to somebody this morning, introduced by Dale, and I won't talk about it because I can't talk about it, but it's a possible alternative coming up too. So keep this space open. But there are other ones out there, and there are a whole pile of tools now, Notion, and I won't bother going through all the other ones. There's so many different tools that people use. It really comes down to what can you use and what will everyone else in the team use and support as well. Because if it's something you own and, oh, guys, you've got to use this and everyone else hates it, guess what? They're not going to use it. So it's got to be something that's functional, that works the way your business works, and that people will accept and implement.
Brilliant, brilliant. Wow, John, you're just such a wealth of knowledge. So if people want to work with you, I presume you work with people all over the world. How can they do that?
Look, the easiest thing, and I know it sounds pretty basic, but go to the website and fill out the contact us. There's a bit down there. I get everything straight onto my phone, and we want to talk to you if you want to talk to us. As we've said in the introduction, we've worked with people, all over Australia, New Zealand, Malaysia, Philippines, and so on. We've also worked with people in the States, in Italy, in Colombia, in the UK, in Hong Kong, and so on. So there are people everywhere, but business is the same. The business genome is everywhere the same. It's not sort of as if it's a special one for Australia or for the US or anywhere else. Business is business, and systems, there you go. So go to there, have a little look at the contact us. There's a cool little tool there called the cost of inefficiency. If you want to see what not having good systems is doing to your business, have a little go at that and get a dollar figure on it based on your input.
Amazing.
Great.
And for those on the audio, that is braininabox.com.au. Brain, BRAIN, in a box.com.au. So get along there and you can connect with John, and he's an absolute wealth of knowledge. And I really appreciate John. John, I think, felt for me at the last conference where he's like, look, Aldwyn, you've turned up 10 times now to the Google Sites presentation, and at least I'm showing up, John. I'm showing up. I'm leaning
You
in.
are.
And look, You know,
Look at
Hey,
this.
we all have areas of growth. I mean, I'd
Yeah.
be lying if I said that I've, figured everything out and my business is just where I want it to be. Hell no. There's still quite a few things I need to adjust and
Yeah.
make adjust. And actually right now I'm in a transitional period of just focus of what I'm going to be focusing on social media and different things like that. I have as of a couple of days ago, I think I've kind of made a little bit of more of an executive decision that I'm not going to focus so heavily on Facebook and Instagram anymore. I am realizing there's a lot of potential using a platform called TikTok, and been following a guy on YouTube that's been kind of talking a lot about that. And I just find it maybe it's a little bit easier rather than trying to battle with all this stupid, idiotic Facebook and Instagram algorithms that just simply end up shadow banning me anyhow. So, yeah, but like I said, we're always learning and there's always opportunity to learn. And Aldwyn, if you have to go to his conference 11 times or 12 times to get that stuff to further sink in or to learn what you need to learn, then that's the place that God has you at this point, because you keep having to go back because you haven't learned what you need to learn yet. You take away pieces of that each time, but maybe it's just you still need some more pieces. It's not that not that you're failing or anything like that. It's just you still need some pieces, and that's okay.
Yeah, and I'm not a slow learner. I'd just like you to know I have been diagnosed ADHD, so that could be part of it.
I've never seen you as a slow learner.
No, definitely not a slow learner. And I have implemented some systems. However, there's constant fine tuning and refinement. And I always pick up something new when I see John speak. So I really, really appreciate your time today, John. And it's been a wealth of knowledge. Really, really appreciate it. Now, we do like to share also a favorite quote or motto that we live by. And I don't know if you've got something front of mind, have you, that you could share with us before we go to Ken?
Yeah, I'd just go very, very quickly. Only you will end up doing what only you can do. So if you're the only person who can do it, get used to doing it for the rest of your life. So that's it.
Yeah, if you want to free up your time, learn to delegate, learn to write down those systems and delegate.
Get it across. Yeah.
Yeah, and realize if you've got any control. I certainly have had no control issues whatsoever. Maybe just a few little control issues. But, this is the thing, learning to let go, right? Learning to let go. And recognize your A players as well. Like I took on a team of 5 not long ago, and I'm now down to 1 key player. I feel like I've gone full circle because I took on 5 and 4 didn't have the right attitude, right? And they were dropping the ball everywhere. And I did my best to sort of, lift them to a higher standard. But, if people if they're not wanting to be in there and they're just doing it for the money, you've got the wrong team members. So I think that's a crucial part too, is making sure you hire on attitude more so than the skills. Is a big thing like that.
Exactly.
And now back to square one, and now we're refining everything, and then we'll be building the team again. However, now we're really working on fine-tuning the systems, rather than sort of scattering my energy across too many people, with training too many people without having proper systems in place. So
I think it's awesome that you zeroed it down to one person that's really in it for you and really working together with you. I think that's so much better than having 4 or 5 people just spreading your energy, your time, your love, your presence with. It's I actually like that, Aldwyn. That's awesome.
I was down to thank you. Yeah, I was down to 2 team members up until about a week ago, and I just thought, no, this second person is just not. They just kept making simple mistakes, and look, I hold myself to high account. I am actually quite a bit of a perfectionist, and I'm probably hard on myself and a little bit hard on the team. So I've been learning since the last Business Blueprint conference, learning to acknowledge my team more, etc., and communicating openly. But however, if I see mistake keeps having the same thing, I think, okay, they're just internet keeps cutting out, or they're turning up late, or it's just slack, right? Just slackness, and you need
there's
to have
got to be a better way.
Yeah, got to
Yeah.
be a certain standard there. So,
Mm.
so it's been a great learning experience. However, it's been a journey to learning to let go, I must say. And
Yep.
a lot of people have trust issues, right? How many people have been ripped off in business? So this is another big
Mm.
thing that people are facing now is, building the system and building the team, learning to manage all of that. So yeah, so much
Yep.
gold there, Jeff. Brilliant. And Ken,
Yeah.
for people who want to connect with you, my friend, how can they do that?
Well, the best way to connect with me is through my link tree. And by the way, before I go into all of that, I just also want to preface this. So you might have seen me disappear off the screen just a little while ago. I find it absolutely humorous that in the midst of me talking about all the tabs being open and waiting till my computer finally crashes, yeah, my web browser actually froze. And so I was locked out until I was able to finally reinitiate everything. So I find that hilarious. God has got a sense of humor for sure.
Was that a Mac or a? Sorry, that was a joke.
Yeah.
It was a
all
joke.
right. All right. I deserve that.
Mac or
I
PC, what
deserve
do you
that.
prefer?
Gotta
Let us
get a
know in
joke.
the chat.
Well taken. I love it. Thanks, John. That was awesome. So my link tree, back to things here. So my link tree, there are 3 links on my link tree that I'm going to draw your attention to. So number 1, there is a link to connect with me on Facebook, and that's just simply to further connect with me on Facebook. The second link you'll find is a calendar link to book an appointment with me. And that is something that I would actually prefer. I would like to meet you. I would like to network with you. I'd like to get to know you a little bit more, vice versa. Even if you don't want to hire me as a coach. And yes, I am a weight loss coach based off of my own transformational experience of losing 62.5 pounds and keeping it off effortlessly for 6 years now. I teach other people how to do the exact same thing, but without a diet and making it sustainable and easy, just like it is for me. And that's the key. So just connect with me, though. Book an appointment. Like I said, even if you don't hire me as a coach, I just want the opportunity to get to know you. Third and last is there's a link on there to my website. And so you can go on my website. You can find out all about me. You can, find out all the things, and there's even a free masterclass playing there on the website. It is evergreen, so you can sign up for that anytime you want. It's a great masterclass. It is only an hour and 15 minutes long. Well worth your time. There's great value in that. I just recently updated it, and it's got great stuff. My link tree for those of you listening by audio is www.linktr.ee/Fat Fighter Ken.
Love it. Thank you so much, Ken. And what's your quote you'd like to share with us or motto today?
Oh, well, let's go with a little bit of a, well, you know what? I'm going to use that quote because I think it applies very well to some of the stuff we were talking about today. So, treat the word impossible as nothing more than motivation. And that's by Donald J. Trump.
Beautiful. Thank you so much, Ken. And for those who want to connect with me, you can go to my link tree /Aldwyn, linktr.ee/Aldwyn. It has all my social links. I have about 50 different links in there. So take your time, go through them. I am about message to the masses, of course. If you want to be seen, heard, and known, then you can book a free connection and clarity call with me. I've got my calendar link in there. Also, we have lots of great resources and materials, 5 top tips to gain TV exposure. We've got webinar replays if you want to start your own shows. If you want to get publicity, want to get mass media exposure in some way, then reach out. Linktree /Aldwyn. We just did a Step Up Speak Up challenge recently. We've got all the replays in a Step Up Speak Up challenge group, which you can have a look at. We did 3 days of videos on our last challenge. You can go and watch those replays. Enjoy lots of content you can consume. YouTube is growing rapidly. My YouTube channel, Aldwyn Altuney Media Queen TV. And we've been popping some great little comedy skits in there too lately, which have been doing really well. So if you want a bit of a laugh, go over there to Aldwyn Altuney Media Queen TV. Subscribe on YouTube, and I would love to connect with you. And of course, we have the Global Good News Challenge. Every single month is free marketing for you. It's a way to share gratitude and good news. Something very close to my heart is to inspire more good news and more truth in the world. And, you know, I've personally had depression. I've had 4 friends who have taken their own lives by the age of 45. And through COVID, we've had 4 times the suicide rate. So now more than ever, it's important that we share our good news and we show gratitude. And the more you show gratitude in life, the more you will get to be grateful for. Okay. So my quote today, I'm going to share one about systems today. I found this one online by Donella Meadows. The system, to a large extent, causes its own behavior. An outside event may unleash that behavior, but the same outside event applied to a different system is likely to produce a different result. Isn't that a great quote there? So, and, you know, if you think about, well, how do McDonald's run, you know, with 10-year-olds operating them, you know, how do they have systems like they have, you know, Ray Kroc was amazing creating the systems for McDonald's. And, you know, I mean, mainly they're a real estate company, but really, you know, if you could break it down to simple systems where you've got that consistency of approach right across the board, imagine what would happen to your business if you could break it down and do it like McDonald's do it, without the, you know, obviously without the junk food, you know, looking at the actual systems, not the food itself.
I know you mentioned McDonald's, and automatically my reaction was bleh.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to draw on that and take you away from that, Ken, so you don't have to think about it. But the systems are great, but it's the training. McDonald's is fantastic at training. So systems plus training plus support is the key there.
Love it. Thank you so much. And any other final words before we wrap up this Total Truth Show, episode 57? Any other final words?
I think I've said it all.
No. Okay. Well, we are going to be wrapping up. I do want to say thank you so much to everyone who's joined us live. Please pop in the chat. Have you joined us live, or are you watching the replay? Let us know. And what are some gold nuggets, or just one gold nugget that you've got out of this interview today? Let us know in the comments. If you think someone could really use the gold that we've shared here, please share the love. Make sure you connect on our Total Truth Show Facebook page as well, and on our podcast on Spotify and all the places we are online. Please stay connected. And another final quote, which I absolutely love, of course, my favorite, by Gandhi: be the change you wish to see in the world. We'll see you back shortly here. Total Truth Show. We're back in the next week or two with more amazing episodes, and check out our previous episodes as well. You'll love them. We've got some really good content there. Thank you so much, John, once again for being our special guest. It's
Thanks,
been absolute
Ken.
pleasure.
Thanks, Aldwyn.
Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.